Late Thursday night, I had a fall in my home. Usually how certain falls happen, you slip. And I slipped and tried to catch my hand. It wasn't like a banana slip. I actually almost caught myself. Landed on my knuckle in the windowsill of my home. So
I think that, you know, if you wrote down the people that you think are the contenders in the NBA right now, you may not have us on there. I think that'd be fair to say that a lot of people would feel that way. And so to make up ground, you have to be great at the little things. You have to be great at being a team. You know, you have to look at it through a different lens than you don't have an all-star here, all-star here, all-star here. You have to look at it as, what can we all do to soar with our strengths to be the best that we can be? And I think that goes, you know, that's on us to continue to convey that message.
Before you start, I just want to clear the air about some BS rumor that came out. I don't know if the person who made this article is in this circle, but the rumor about me wanting to get traded is definitely false. I said that I was frustrated with losing, not frustrated with the team.
How did it feel to see Gino time as a visitor?
Listen, I was so upset. I didn't even get to really get Gino in my system. My low moment for the night, you know what I mean? Gino, big part of me, and I didn't even get to celebrate it, but, you know, I'm still a huge Gino fan, all right?
Welcome to the season recap here on the Garden Report. We are going to talk about the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, the end of the season. That's how recaps work.
Yep, there you go.
We got Zack Cox here. We got Julian Edlow here. I'm Jared Weiss. Let's start from the beginning here. What a weird year it's been. So we were talking before we went on the air about how there's been like 3 teams within one team in this season. It's like 3 different mini seasons basically, and it's kind of like the final season of Mad Men, I guess. And
obviously that's the easy comparison.
I think that's probably the only one that makes sense. And the thing is, so they started as a kind of like a team. They're the team they want to be now, and they were kind of trying to force that with players that didn't really fit into it at first. You had Rajon Rondo, Jeff Green. I mean, that was the main problem, was you had Rajon Rondo and Jeff Green. And Julian, this is your first year covering the team, and I'm curious from your perspective as someone that hadn't really gotten to see any other Celtics team up close, how you saw kind of the chemistry and the way they play on the court kind of change throughout the year.
I mean, this team, there were no expectations around it all year, so losses were expected. So I didn't come in with many expectations of, you know, this is going to be, you know, such a great team in the locker room. They're going to be so hyped for all these games and everything. What I will say is that trading Rondo was definitely the right move, as well as Jeff Green, but starting that all off, you got to get rid of Rondo. They did it. I give them a lot of props for that. I mean, imagine if Ainge went the other way. Imagine if they landed Kevin Love. Kevin Love I don't think his stock this summer would be as high as it was last summer.
Oh, God, no.
Definitely not that. I don't want to say he's a bad player, but his stock has dropped. Rondo lost himself a beep load of money in Dallas with how his season ended there. So, I mean, I'm happy that didn't happen. I think they would have gone downhill if that was the case. So, I don't even remember what the question was at this point.
It doesn't matter anymore.
But, you know, this team, where it is now compared to where it was at the beginning of the season, is just so much more enjoyable to watch, so much more enjoyable to be around.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, this is my first year covering this team too, so my first year kind of seeing all the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And it was weird coming into the season because you looked at the team and you're like, okay, I know that probably not many of these guys are going to be around for this entire season. You go in, it was pretty much a given coming into the year that, like, yeah, by the trade deadline, we'll look like a completely different team. And if we don't, then Danny Ainge wouldn't have been doing his job, because they weren't going to contend with the roster they had right there. They're currently not contending with the roster they have right now either, but they're trending in the right direction.
And they're in the playoffs, for God's sake.
Yeah, we're in the playoffs. Yeah, thinking back to the beginning of the season, who would have thought that when we were here night 1 against the Nets, that we were going to be here after a playoff game? It's ridiculous to think back, and I mean, it shows the progress they made this season. But it was definitely, it's like Julian said, so much more of an exciting team to watch on the basketball court. Such a better kind of environment in the locker room. I mean, I wasn't around in the locker room during last season when they really kind of went down the tubes, so I can't speak to what that was like. But even from the beginning of the season until like March, you could just see it was such a stark difference in just the whole vibe. Everybody's buying in. Everybody was really just like, it seemed like everyone was on the same page. Everyone was supporting each other. And I mean, it's what you want to see from a team. But it's a long season. If Chris Babb had ended up getting into a game and they would have set the franchise record for most players playing in a single season, I think that would have been 23. So
I don't know what Stevens was thinking, not getting them in.
I know.
Hashtag free Chris.
Poor coaching right there. But no, it's a very, very interesting season, and we're going to look back at all of it right now, I'm sure.
The thing I remember, the way I kind of look at this year is I actually scheduled a vacation out to England a few months back. I was going to leave.
now.
I was going to leave the day after the last game of the season.
Bulletin board material.
Yeah, and I told everyone about it, obviously, and they're all like, "We got to take down Jared Weiss. Screw that guy." No, but I remember there was a point in the season where I was like, Jesus, I got to reschedule my vacation. There's a good chance to make the playoffs, and it went from like being able to plan your entire life ahead of knowing they're not going to be in the playoffs and everything, to them being a competitive team. And it was so weird to see that transition, because the more they stripped the team down, the better they played together. But it felt like every single player individually got better the more they were able to strip the team down. And we saw Avery Bradley went from people going, I guess Avery Bradley was kind of a mistake and his career is trending downwards. All of a sudden, before the series, I guess, he kind of was he was back to being the Avery Bradley that people kind of had high hopes for, and the guy that earned that $8 million contract. Brandon Bass, even, who was supposed to be traded every single day for the past 2 years, somehow managed to stay on this roster. And he even said after this game on Sunday that he still wanted to stay in Boston, which, I mean, you'd expect him to say that, but yeah, it's a legitimate thing that could possibly happen.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show how beneficial it can be to be actually playing with the same people for any sort of expanded period of time. Like the roster turned over so many times this year that you couldn't even really get a sense of who works well with who's developing, because everybody's role was changing so much and the actual physical bodies on the floor were changing so much. But ever since the trade deadline, they got to lock everything down. You really got to see how these guys were progressing.
So there were two guys that changed everything. First it was Jay Crowder.
Yep.
Then it was Isaiah Thomas. So Jay Crowder comes in. They start playing a little bit more efficiently. They're able to run better. They're a little more versatile. And you see their defense starts to improve. Then they bring in Isaiah Thomas, and their offense explodes. And they become a positive net rating team after so much of the year. They were like, this team was getting beat up all over the court. They ended up being a positive differential team, which was pretty remarkable. They were able to keep the pace up while improving their efficiency, and that's mostly because Isaiah Thomas opened up the floor for everybody. And they had Rajon Rondo here, who's supposed to make everyone, anyone an ascertainable target offensively. That's a pretty bad sentence, but I tried. And they bring in Isaiah, who is not that great of a passer and is frankly kind of a nut job when it comes to jumping in the air and trying to heave it to somebody that'll catch it. We saw him on Sunday throw the ball in the stands a couple times. He does it a lot. But just his ability to drive as hard as possible, get into the paint, it screws up everything for the defense. And that opened up so much for this team, and it basically changed the entire existence of this team because they finally had the upper hand for once. They were always a team trying to play from behind, trying to play to counter what the other team does well, just hoping if they move as hard as possible that they'll be able to catch the other team off guard. But with Isaiah on this team, they were finally able to actually attack. And that was something that Rondo never gave them, because Rondo is the kind of player that he literally
wouldn't shoot.
His disposition, like the way he stood, changed. He kind of started to lean back a little bit more over the past year or so, where he would kind of sit back, dribble around, and then try to rifle off a pass. Isaiah Thomas leans forward, puts his head down, and just drives into your chest. And yeah, that finally gave them the opportunities they needed to grow as a team.
I mean, going into the season, who would think that you trade Rondo, get Isaiah Thomas on the cheap, and now which point guard would you rather have? I think everybody would say Isaiah Thomas, and that includes
I think Rondo loses that battle to most point guards in the NBA right now.
At this point, yeah, but I mean, going into, who would think that the Celtics would be able to upgrade at point guard by trading Rondo away and making another under the radar trade?
Using the asset they got for Rondo too.
using
only one of the three assets that they got for Rondo.
Yep.
I mean, the Isaiah Thomas trade, they literally got Isaiah Thomas with what they acquired from the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade exception. Marcus Thornton, another one of those pieces from the beginning of the year that everybody forgot about, and the first-round pick that they got in that, and they take it fired off, there's Isaiah Thomas. So there's almost another piece of that Nets trade, along with all the picks and the Chris Humphreys and the Gerald Wallaces that they pick up with that. And then to move along to Crowder, he's a guy that we talk about him a lot, saying that he's turning into like the East Coast Draymond Green, who almost won Defensive Player of the Year and is a huge piece of what the Warriors are doing. So, Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas, they're the type of players that can help carry you to a 7 seed, but if you have them as your 6th and 7th men, now you're really starting to get somewhere. So we'll see if they're around when the Celtics are good enough to have them be 6th and 7th men, but they're, like you keep saying, trending in the right direction.
I wasn't too keyed in on the video. I seen a couple glimpses, but I was just trying to stay focused. No cheers. I think B-Bass blinked a couple times, but I didn't cry.
What have you learned about Evan that you didn't know prior to when training camp kicked off?
Like a fun fact?
No, like on the court about his game, what he brings to the table. Oh. But you can give me a fun fact too.
Like his favorite animal is turtles or something? That's a good question. My favorite animal is... That's a good question.
You said you wanted to be a shark, remember?
A shark, yeah, I'd say a shark. A shark is probably my favorite animal. That's like if I could be an animal, I would be a shark.
Sorry.
But if my favorite animal, I don't know, it could be something else like a lemur or something. Yeah. Thank you.
We play hard and we play physical. That's what we did. And we did great.
Talk about what you guys were able to do defensively on DeMar.
Played hard and played physical.
You guys mixed it up a little bit though.
We played hard and played physical. Exactly. You're answering my question.
Do you play hard, then you play physical, or is it hard?
Nah, physical then hard.
Okay.
I'm sorry if you already answered it, but how were you guys able to contain DeMarcus Cousins?
We play hard and play physical.